come and go where now?
You don't need the same games, Bluey. You need Torch Mouth.
G'day, cheeky dogs. Today we're going to be breaking down the Bluey episode Double Babysitter from season 2.
Yeah, didn't you fall in the pool at the wedding?
Probably.
Now, the last 2 weeks I've been going through a bunch of stuff to do with this episode because, of course, the 28-minute Bluey episode The Sign is coming out this weekend, and it is about Rad and Frisky's wedding. So what better things to do than to break down the episode where they first met?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm going to go through all the Easter eggs, hidden references, all the extra little details about this episode that maybe you didn't know. And if you love Bluey as much as we do here, don't forget to hit that like button down below, that subscribe button, and that bell for notifications so you know whenever I release any other Bluey videos. But let's start off with the fact that this episode was meant to be the movie.
Oh, well, as long as it's okay with Uncle Rad.
Fine by me.
So Joe Brum said in an interview with the Gotta Be Done podcast that this episode was actually his first idea for a Bluey movie, sort of like a love, romance, setup, comedy kind of episode. Although he later scrapped the idea of it being a movie and instead it just decided to make this the episode instead that was going to be the 100th episode of Bluey.
Speaking of movies, the last time you spoke to us, you mentioned there were a few more characters you wanted to introduce before a potential eventual Bluey movie. Was that Rad and Frisky? And now we've met them. How close is the movie?
Not very close, I'm afraid. Yeah, definitely. The Double Babysitter episode, when there was a brief idea of making a movie, I thought could have been a good basis for that.
So to go through my regular breakdown, normally I'll go through like different Easter eggs, but I'm going to start off with like the characters and all the Easter eggs associated with them first. I'm going to start off with Uncle Rad.
Hi, Uncle Ray. Where is he?
So Uncle Rad's voice actor is Patrick Brammall, who is a famous Australian actor, and he was actually in a show called The Letdown, which was initially what Joe Brum wanted to do for Bluey when he eventually wanted it to be like more live action and more adult. The Letdown is what he wanted to do. So if you ever want to watch another show that's Australian, watch The Letdown. But like I said, Patrick Brammall was in that, so I'm not surprised then that Joe Brum wanted him in the show, and of course he voices the iconic Uncle Rad.
And then the prince knocked the dragon out with a big prince punch. Boom!
Let's talk about Uncle Rad's design because it actually changed over the seasons. So initially we see 2 photos of him, one in Bluey's house and one in Nana's house, where his first initial design just had him with like the red fur like for his hair, but the rest of his body was a blue healer like the rest of his family. Of course, by the time we got Double Babysitter, they decided to change it so it was more like half and more like yellowy, and he looks a lot like the beach. We see one of the photos is holding a surfboard, so we know he loves the beach as well. Something you might have missed though is his car. So at the front of the house, when we see Bluey's mum and dad leaving, we can see where Frisky and Rad have parked their cars, and Uncle Rad's car looks like it's to be a Hilux, and there's even a bumper sticker on it, and the bumper sticker on it looks like the Fox Racing Star bumper sticker. Now this also works in with a little bit of clue as to where Uncle Rad might live, because we do find out later in the episode that he lives in an oil rig, and if you're not from Australia, and even if you are, maybe you don't know where our oil rigs are. Most of the time though, they're in the Northern Territory and the Western Australia or down south, but there is one that's in Queensland, which would explain then why Uncle Rad has the Hilux and why he was able to drive his car to and from Bluey's house. But it is a 10-hour drive, so that's probably why he doesn't see them that often.
Why do we only see you at Christmas?
Because I work on an oil rig.
Of course, Uncle Red also is part of the iconic joke to the audience about Bluey being a girl or a boy.
Oh yeah, because he's blue.
I'm a girl.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
I actually did like a whole video about this and why people do misgender Bluey and all that, so I'll leave a link for it up here and down below if you'd like to check that out later. Uncle Red is also the second adult to ever announce the title card.
This episode of Bluey is called Double Babysitter.
And he also has some weird pockets going on. Like, this is always a bit of a joke in the Bluey community, is like, where do they hide stuff in their pockets? And of course, Frisky grabs his car keys out of his pockets.
You don't need the same games, Bluey.
So we can all assume that like something's going on with the fair there.
Her turn.
Moving on then to Aunt Frisky and all the little Easter eggs and references associated with her.
Hello.
Frisky.
Hey, girls. Ooh.
So her voice actor is Chloe O'Doherty, another famous Australian actress. And in this episode, we find out that she is the girl's godmother, or fairy godmother, as they like to refer to her.
Frisky is Bluey's fairy godmother.
However, there's a big misunderstanding concept between this episode with her and Christmas Swim. So if you look at the credits for Double Babysitter, she is titled as Aunt Frisky. So the girls were already calling her aunt, even though they don't actually say that in this episode, but she's obviously just a really good friend of Chili's. She's the girl's godmother, so they affectionately call her aunt. She doesn't get married into the family. And like I said, that's going to happen in this episode, The Sign, that's coming up. I know a lot of people get mistaken when they see the very next episode, which is Christmas Swim, and like Rad and Frisky are on holiday in Bali, and people think that they're on their honeymoon because she says like, I'm new to the Healer family.
Nice to meet you, Bartleby. I'm Frisky. I'm new to the Healer family as well.
But no, she just means that she's like dating Uncle Rad and like sort of an official part of the family now. They're not married yet.
They're a bit crazy.
Hey!
Now, as I mentioned before, we do see their cars out the front, and Frisky, of course, has a little, what looks like a Suzuki Swift. But something that's really funny is a lot of people always are like, well, how do we know she's not the one with the Hilux? I think we can tell from like their personalities as to which person matches with which car. Now, in this episode, of course, we do find out a lot about Frisky. She's the first person we've seen in Bluey to actually have a breakup. So, of course, we find out about Bosco. I've done already a bunch of theory videos about that, like Bosco cheated on her, what happened, everything like that. So, again, if you want to check them out, I'll leave it linked down below.
Will Bosco be the daddy?
No. Bosco and I aren't friends anymore.
Who's Bosco?
No one.
But something really interesting, of course, is that this episode focuses primarily on her and Bluey and them both working through their fears of something new and different and giving something a try after the previous time they tried to do something, it didn't work out. So it is really nice to see that like parallel between the two of them and their storylines develop throughout this episode.
You have to give it a go anyway, or you'll be stuck in a tower with a stinky dragon forever.
Okay, I'll give it a go.
That's my girl.
Another really cool little Easter egg that links Frisky and Rad together is their music. So the music you hear when Uncle Rad comes in stops when we hear the music for Frisky coming in, and then when they both look at each other for the first time, their music actually melds together.
Uncle Rad's here!
Ooh.
This is Uncle Rad.
Hi.
Hi.
Again, little reference through the music of how these characters are going to find each other. And again, this links into our traditional Easter eggs, such as our long dogs and I guess our tennis balls as well. But we do see two long dogs in this episode that are both meant to represent Frisky and Rad together, and it's at the very end when they're on the veranda. If you look behind them up against the patio wall, you can see the two little long dogs there cuddling into each other. As for our tennis balls, there's no new ones here. We just see the ones that are usually in that like entrance hallway there, and there's two. Some other really fun Easter eggs is to do with Bandit's job as an archaeologist. So when we see the girls brushing their teeth and doing the campfire scene in the hallway, we see a picture of like 3 archaeological looking stones, again a reference to Bandit's job. We also see a little football up on the roof of the Healer house as Bandit and Chili are driving away. Another really cool thing we see is in the Twilight scene, we see the antennas on Mount Cootha. We're also going to be seeing Mount Cootha again in the new episode The Sign. It's coming up, but it is nice to sort of see that reference to like Brisbane locations even though they're at the Healer house. Some other little details that maybe you might have missed is the dog book that Frisky is reading has like a little dog bone on it. Also, the dragon that Rad like prince punches and is of course on the title card is definitely, I think, a reference to Elliot the dragon from Pete's Dragon, to the point where like they both have the little colored hair, the colored wings. Of course, Elliot is pink and in this case it's purple, but the Bluey animators do this all the time with the toys where they make it look almost exactly like it would in the original movie. They do this with Studio Ghibli stuff all the time, but in this case I definitely think it was a little reference towards the famous Elliot. Something else you might have missed as well is the stars. Now when Rad and Frisky are outside, we actually see a shooting star go over them, which represents like a whole bunch of things, but most of all like started their relationship and hope. But we also do see some other like constellations in the background, and I thought maybe it looked like the Southern Cross, but I don't think it does. So I'm really curious, what do you think these constellations look like? So overall for me, this episode I think was definitely a 5 out of 5 long dogs. I absolutely loved the like paralleling stories between Bluey and Frisky overcoming their fear of trying something new again. I do think there was so many hints to what it's like to be an adult and going through relationships, both friendships with Frisky only having 3 friends, as well as going through an awful breakup where you have trust issues as well. But as Rad said, something can be weird at the start, but then after a while you get used to it.
Yeah, but before you know it, you get used to it.
I definitely think that that's meant to be like the overall theme of this, is that, yeah, you got to try something different sometimes to be able to move on and enjoy something again. I also do love the theory of like, what was Nana watching on TV that scared Bluey so much? Let me know in that comment section down below what you think that she was watching. As well as how many long dogs would you give this episode? Like I said, I definitely give it 5 out of 5. But while you're down there as well, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that bell for notifications so you know whenever I release any of the Bluey videos. But until then, I picked your cheeky dogs out a few other videos that maybe you would like to watch, and I'll see you all in another video. Mwah! Bye!